Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we're back for part 2 of our discussion about the offense in that one-sided thrashing of the Dallas Cowboys down in the Jerry Dome. Joining me to do that is Jason Smith of Huddle It Up Films. Jason, how you doing?
Doing great. Nice old-fashioned butt whipping down there in Jerry World.
It's nice to see. You made a good point in the first. You made lots of good points in the first show. The first show, by the way, really worth going back and listening to. A lot of talk about Rasheen Ali. What are the Ravens really trying to do with him? Jason thinks one thing, I think another, and that's always the best discussion. Is when I think that Jason made some good points about some of the players that they're trying to get additional snaps for at this point in the preseason are players they are going to depend on during the season. He mentioned Cooper Rush, Charlie Kohler, and he thinks Rasheen Ali fits in that group as well as a guy that they're peaking their usage in week 2 of the preseason, so they'll be ready for the regular season. But then your expectation for that would be that they bubble wrap Ali in game 3 or that they still continue on with some level of play from him?
I think all of those guys, Devontae Walker too, with a lot of snaps. I think they cut back this week and maybe play a couple of series. Maybe they get the treatment that
starters have gotten.
Right, the Voorhees and Falele have gotten the last couple of weeks.
Terrific. Yeah, that I would feel a lot better if that was the case, and I would make that more consistent with what I would expect for a running back at this point. But I certainly didn't expect 19 carries. So anyway, some good points on that. We talked a lot about the order of entry and how that came to be. So we've talked about some of the players in that first episode. We'll talk about more in these individual notes as we go through in the second session. As always, we're looking for your mailbag question. Use hashtag FilmStudyMailbag on Twitter if you want to leave a question or just a comment that we can kick around a little bit. I know Jason works a lot off that on his show. You really have an audience participation show, which is great. I'd like, whatever you guys really want to ask, that's cool. Don't make up questions for no good reason. But if you really want to know about something, or you really want to kick around some idea, or you just want to throw it out there for us to kind of evaluate it, that's cool too. We're looking for that kind of thing. But let's start this second part with some discussion of the offensive line to start with. Now there's 2 players that I looked at in terms of the offensive line, in terms of what they did. And we scored all 64 snaps of both Vinson and Dellinger. Now, I'll give you the timeline here. I created the offensive piece, which includes our note level description of some pressure events for these linemen. But then we did a block by block analysis just tonight, right before the show, that I haven't had a chance to get in the offense thing at all. It's long been my thought that I don't ever want to give offensive line analysis opinions before it's done thoroughly, because if you do that, you just have a chance to be wrong twice. So you don't want to let yourself get whipsawed on these kind of things. You're at the game and you think you saw Falele or whoever, James Hurst or whatever, played really well, and then you come back home and you look at the tape and they say, this wasn't good. Then you have to reverse yourself and there's just no need to put yourself in that position. Just shut up until you're ready to really talk about it. But anyway, a good night for both those guys. I think for starters, we're really excited about the amount of playing time that these guys were able to pile up.
And for these guys, I expect them to play a ton this coming week. I mean, what was it, 64 snaps, Ken?
64 snaps for each, yep.
That could very well, they could play the whole game and play fewer than that this week, just depending on if the other team is any good on offense. But yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of Vinson, would like and interested to hear how you score it, but I would just say within the first 2 weeks, I think it would go kind of how you would expect it to go for someone who is ultra talented physically, but also making a huge jump. So you got your bad moments, you got stretches of bad, but you also have some stretches of good. You see reasons, the reasons why you drafted them show up as well, as far as the strength, the strong hands, the enthusiasm, the physicality. So you see him taking his lumps, but you also see some promise of what's to come in the future. And, I think, he's going to be someone who's kind of stashed this year, obviously, unless things get really bad. But when you take a chance in the draft, Cam, with a developmental tackle, it's a long shot for a reason. I think that he's got a better chance than most.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree more even after scoring this game. I think he is. I'll start with a big spoiler here. I think he is well ahead of schedule for where you'd expect a developmental lineman to be at this point. And he turned in a game against Dallas, who has some reserve edge rushing talent there that they had on the field. I mean, Ezeraku was out there for a lot of the game. That's a guy that the Ravens players want. They had a number of other guys there to have moderate to decent pedigrees. They didn't have Micah Parsons on the field, but they had other guys who could certifiably rush the passer, or certainly could in their past. Let me talk a little bit about Vinson first, then we'll do Dellinger. For the game, Vinson had 61 plays. That's 61 scored plays, 64 snaps total. Of course, there's like a penalty in Jamal Banks that doesn't end up being a scored play, for example. He missed 5 blocks in the game, and then he had pressures on 5 others. That was 3 fulls and 2 halves for 4 total pressures. That's not good, but hey, it can be worse. And so it's a good length of game. And 2/3 of a quarterback hit he allowed. So on the quarterback hit that got allowed, there was also a pressure from the other side on Noteboom's side, I believe it was, that I ended up giving him 1/3 of that quarterback hit. So he scored 40 total points out of a possible 61, which is 0.66. And I got a very big adjustment. Normally, the adjustment is always between 0 and 0.1. So the most you could get would be a 76 after adjustment, which would be in the C range. I gave him 0.08 of that in this game. And here's the reason why. He had 8 level 2 blocks. That's one of the things I really loved about watching Vincent play is he really got after it going out into level 2 and trying to find work. And he did a great job when he got there. And part of that was getting pancakes where he had 4. I thought he might have had 5 pancakes in this game, but I must have miscounted. So when I went back, he had 4. That's a ton of pancakes for one game for any offensive lineman. And he is a finisher. He's not Daniel Faalele in terms of being kind of not wanting to use his weight or drop on people. Most of the time, he wants to put the other guy on the ground. He's not really crazy about dropping his weight on them, but he wants to put him on the ground. And I love that. I love that he's enjoying being a finisher. And he had 5 highlight blocks. And that was a combination of things. There were some combinations, moving out to level 2 and getting a pancake in one case. One is a combination. Let me read what the 5 are, and then I'll do it. He blocked 2 guys at the line of scrimmage on one occasion. On one of the touchdowns, it was I think it was a dive play to the right by Johnson. He actually blocked 3 guys on the backside of the play. That was just exceptionally good. 93, 53, then 47, all on the backside of the play on the 2-yard run by Johnson for the touchdown. So, really nice game of highlights for him as well. Pulled successfully 1 out of 1 time. So it wouldn't matter if he got a 74 or 76 anyway, whether it would matter even if he got a 71. The score would be the same. The grade would be the same, be a C, regardless at the left tackle spot. I can't even tell you how good that is for a developmental left tackle, even in a preseason game, to score that well. It'd be way over my expectation.
Well, and the other thing is, Ken, this is the preseason. We're not chipping. We're not giving him a lot of help. Mm-hmm. He's pretty much on his own out there. So that kind of makes it even more impressive that they, the edge rushers don't have to worry about being chipped or any of that kind of thing, or a tight end lined up on his side. I mean, he was pretty much doing it his own. And then just to reiterate, you see those flashes of physicality that you liked from him translating to the NFL. I mean, from going to Alabama A&M to an NFL preseason game is still a huge jump, and it's translating. So you love that. And, of course, you're drafting him to be possibly the tackle of your future, but the traits that you mentioned in your overview, if he turns out to be a really good right guard or left guard, then that's a win for a 5th-round pick as well.
It would be a win. Boy, do I not want anything but left tackle right now. Not anything but left tackle. I kind of think in his size and shape mold, he's really built to be that. He's got great length and good feet. He's got kind of a vertical frame about him. He's not carrying around a lot of weight in his butt and midsection. He's just a guy who it's left tackle or bust, I think, for him. I think there's a really good chance it's going to be left tackle and not bust.
I like it. I would love for him to be a left tackle. You talking about pull blocks, climbing, especially the climbing, the level 2 and pancaking. That sounds like a some good, nice guard qualities in there. Play strength, all that other stuff. So yeah, you want the left tackle, but I'm saying he might just be a heck of an NFL lineman. I just and you mentioned earlier his enthusiasm. I think that we could use a little bit of that on the line.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily like a nasty. It's more of a happy. But he is an excitable. He's an energy giver out there, and that's pretty good because offensive linemen like to keep it steady. You know what I mean? Let's not get up, two down like a baseball player. Let's just one right after another, not too high, not too low. So I like the energy that he brought.
Along those lines, or to that end, I'd love to know how it will also have been a fly on the wall watching him and the other offensive linemen go over the film for this game, because I wonder if he could contain himself from being happy for what he had done. And I know he's going to get a lot of positive comments from watching that, both from his teammates and from Warhop telling him this really worked out there. But on the other hand, would that suddenly mute his ears or deafen his ears towards hearing some of the criticisms that go with that in terms of, did he really have his feet set right to make a block on some of these cases where he's getting backed up and whatnot? So no, I hope he hasn't lost that.
I don't think so. I think Warhop is he's a pretty serious dude, mm-hmm. and I'm pretty sure he's keeping those guys on their toes, especially after what he said to Carson during the draft call. So I don't think Carson's smelling his own stuff or anything like that with Warhop in the room.
Well, just an outstanding game, and again, a C grade. And this is one of these times when the professor tells you a C is not a bad grade here. A C is a fantastic grade for a developmental left tackle playing his second, NFL experience. In fact, his second experience above, basically a second tier college team. Okay. All right. Let's move forward. Talk about Dellinger a little bit. Also had a very fine game. And Dellinger's a big time guard prospect who, despite his 7th round selection, he came out of LSU. He's played in the SEC. He's played with the big boys before. He had a pretty good game too. 61 plays, 54 blocks they scored. He did miss 4, allowed half a penetration. It was a combo thing, but he basically got backed up. And also Mitchell Payton lost his block on the outside, and that finished the job. So I split it between the two of them for the penetration. Pressures, he had 1.5. And one of those, let's see, I thought he had one. Ooh. Yeah. So he shared one with 71, and he had a full one of his own where he was bowled. So anyway, 1.5 penetrate, 1.55 pressures, I'm sorry, and that was minus 3 points. So he scored 50 out of a possible 61 points, 0.82 for him. At guard, the standard is higher, but I'd say with adjustment, and his adjustment is substantially lower because he didn't have the kind of highlight blocks that Vinson had. Still, I'd give him an extra 0.03 for that, and that'd put him at 0.85, which is a B at guard. So solid game for him as well. I actually didn't look at how Dellinger scored by PFF this week, but I'd be interested to hear that. But anyway, B for Dellinger in this game. 3 level 2 blocks, 1 pancake. Made all 3 pulls, so that's nice, and had 2 highlight combination blocks. It wasn't anything particularly above the line in terms of what he did. It's nice to have 2 highlights. I got to also be a little bit cognizant of context in terms of who he was facing on the Cowboys by the time he got on the field, but I still think he performed quite well and probably is also ahead of schedule for where we'd hope he'd be. It's a B in this game, and he's probably ahead of schedule for where we'd hope he'd be as a 7th round pick.
I would like to think so. I don't have as strong as an opinion. Just to be honest, I just thought that coming out of college, he did come out of a big time program, played great games. He only had 1 full season though, and that was probably part of the reason. The tightrope surgery he had this year after playing, I think, like 7 or 8 games, and then had to have surgery and miss the rest. So I think that this was really valuable just valuable experience for him. He needed to play at the NFL competition level, get through a game. And again, I wonder. We talked about this on the first pod. I don't know what the odds would be of him getting claimed if we were to put him to the practice squad.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to have a feel for that kind of stuff, Ken. I mean, like Samac, didn't get claimed. Wasn't he on the practice squad last year as a 7th rounder, or was he just straight injured?
I'm having trouble remember. I mean, he was on the real roster for a while. I'm having trouble remember if they cut him initially, put on the practice squad, and then brought him back. Because if they did that, then they had to have somebody else who was the backup center. I guess it would have been McCary.
And Cleveland could have played. Right. So, but then back to Dellinger himself, he has the talent. I mean, and that showed. I didn't study late into this game on offense, so I'm kind of curious to see how he did further along. But I believe early in that game he was facing Mazzy Smith and Perry and Winfrey, two guys with some talent, and he looked like he belonged in there. And was part of those drives that where the Ravens moved the ball on the ground. So I think his run blocking looks pretty good to me. It looks like he can execute any kind of block as far as like physically. And maybe he didn't score great in this game, but he looks like he moves well. Looks like he uses his hands well. Hand usage. He's a puncher. So I definitely liked what I saw from Dellinger. I just got to study him more thoroughly, to be honest with you. I haven't gotten to that at this point in the week yet.
I thought that he and Vinson had some ability to hand off. He had one good handoff with Samac, and I think it was the very next play they tried to stun again, and Samac didn't have the proper depth. They tried to hand off again, didn't work. I thought there's a lot of he's obviously been coached and played at a high level, and that was one of the things Warhop mentioned this summer, by the way, in OTAs, that he said that he really liked the LSU linemen. So they have Emory Jones and Dellinger both out of that program, and Brad Smith was the offensive line coach that he liked there. That he really appreciated his coaching methods. So it's good to hear. And a game like this out of Dellinger, it wasn't perfect, but I think it was good, and I think it's something to build on for sure.
He looks very under control to me, Ken. Like a professional, he's got a professional feel to him.
Yeah.
He's not getting in overly over his skis.
Good point.
That his hand placement looks good. And sometimes you can attribute that kind of stuff to he's just not a very good athlete or whatever. But for Dellinger, it looks like he plays with a good pace and good fundamentals, good knee bend, good hand placement. Looks like a solid player. Like you can see why he played at LSU, or where you're saying was coached well there too.
If you're talking about a guy who gets over his skis that played left guard for the Ravens in recent years, it's the guy who went to the Jets, and now I'm forgetting his name, but I just had
Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, Johnson. So Dellinger, I thought one of the things that I really didn't know yet was his mobility looked pretty good to me in this game. He made all 3 of his pulls, seemed to have a normal amount of get out and get going. In terms of his abilities. And it's something, honestly, that Daniel Faalele has a lot of trouble with. And so the team has, if I had to put it this way, I'd never ask Faalele to pull to make a pass block. So if you were trying to reestablish a pocket that's freaking out of the question. If you ask him to pull on a run block, I prefer, and I know this is not always possible, that Faalele be a 1-gap puller or a 2-gap puller to the right, but not a 3-gap puller left.
I always say 1 gap only. 1 gap to lead over the right side. I mean, honestly, that would be my assessment. I'm not even sure. I think that you're just setting the running back up to fail by asking them to pull more than 1 gap.
Okay. Well, it is normally he's going to have some important responsibility if he's the outside blocker on that side. So either you're making a choice generally if you're pulling him past the tight end, or maybe you're even asking the fullback to be the guy, to be the wide guy on that side and handle the outside, the kick out. But there's choices have to be made. And honestly, it's not that big a sacrifice to have a low cost player at guard who doesn't really hurt your team that much with a combination of Henry and Jackson creating so much value for you. I mean, the team ran for 5.9 yards per carry last year with Daniel Falele playing every single freaking game.
Yeah. Third in points, first in yards, something like that. And, my frustration comes from my scouting and, and just combing to all 22, that there were games where after the first two series, we just had to eliminate a bunch of plays out of the playbook and basically run behind Ronnie. And I think that's a shame. If you ask Falele to down block, he can do that with the best of them. But any other block, like almost literally any other block, he's going to struggle with. That's in the run game. In the pass game, pass protection is another story. But there were times we had trouble getting Derrick Henry going in the first half. And I think a lot of that had to do with, Rosengarten wasn't a great run blocker in his rookie year either, where we just had to abandon running right and basically, revert to a pitch play or the read option to really get things going.
You've got 4 guys who can play guard right now on this team. You have Falele, Cleveland, Voorhees, who looks terrific, by the way, and we probably ought to talk about him at some point, and Dellinger. So you have 4 guys who can play guard on this team without dipping further down and like trying to make guard out of Samac or anything like that. Are you comfortable now with the guard depth on this team?
No, not really. I find myself to be a bigger Ben Cleveland fan than others. So if he had to play, that's fine. But I guess I don't know. I want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but you can't have a perfect team. If we had a veteran in there, you can argue and say that Cleveland is a veteran. I guess I would feel a little bit better. But Ben hasn't played a lot of football. He's been a backup while he's been here mostly. I think Bullock, I was going to ask how much guard he played in preseason or in camp or from what you saw.
He's certainly played a fair amount of guard. He's played a lot of center, and he's played only center in the preseason.
Right.
He's been in there at
in
guard.
The press conference. They had mentioned Bullock playing guard for us, in practice. So I don't know if he would be even considered to be maybe the 4th guard.
Okay, you can certainly consider him. I look at, let's say those are the 5 guards you have. You have 5 guys who can play guard. It includes Bullock on your team, and all 5 of those guys are going to make the team, as far as I'm concerned. But those 5 guys are cheap as shit. In terms of the total cost is basically very little above the minimum for the league for their years. It's an unbelievable value position for the Ravens. As long as they can meet kind of a minimum standard. Last year, we had all of that value still there. We paying McCary a little bit of money, but it really wasn't a lot of money in addition to what's there now. It's pretty damn exciting. Now they're even cheaper, and it's to me, this is one of the really strengths of what the way the team has been built, is that the guard depth is very good. Now, could it fall down? It could, but I think it would take more disruption to make the guard unit fall down than it would say to make left tackle fall down. Left tackle is all dependent on the legs of Ronnie Stanley. As long as he's standing, you're probably going to be okay at left tackle. If he's not, you're probably not going to be okay at left tackle. With these 5 guards, I don't know if you're really asking the question, is Bullock the number 4 guard, or maybe he's the number 3 guard even, or however you want to look at depth at that position. What you're really saying is there's not too much differentiation between those 2 players. Maybe there's not that much of a difference between Dellinger and Bullock, between whoever you might consider there, whether Cleveland and Bullock even. And you could be pretty happy with what you have. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this. It's been done very cheaply, and I think there's the potential that they could get a really good season out of both of Voorhees and Falele, and we could be really excited about this guard team by the end of the year.
All right, there we go.
All right. enough of that, right? Let's move on and talk about the other players. We don't have to go by position group or anything. Just tell me any player you'd like to talk about that you were excited about what they did, or you just want to talk about it.
Let me think about this for a second. You know what? Myles Gaskin looked like he had really fresh legs to me. They say shot out of a cannon. That was really cool. So I'm kind of curious to see whether the Ravens would prefer him or Dearness Johnson after next week's game. If they decide to keep one of those guys on the practice squad, who would it be?
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't know if they really have room for two or not. Probably not. They're going to have a lot of people they have to take care of. Gaskin is a guy to me who's just coming in to be the last running back. It didn't look like but I could see that. I guess I could see them keeping Gaskin over Johnson. I thought Johnson gives them some significant power running in this game, which I really liked. Gaskin is fast. So he certainly did some things positively from that standpoint. Had a nice reception on the right sideline and did a lot of individual running to make that into more yards than it otherwise might have been.
Kind of an interesting competition this week between those two because the Ravens are still trying to get to learn them as well since they're new to the team. So do they get more kickoff returns and opportunities in practice, that kind of thing? Not just running the ball, but and who can play special teams. We talked about Ali being a core special teamer, at least on kickoffs and kick returns.
I think it makes a lot of sense to have both those guys back there on kickoffs and let your competition for the first guy you would elevate off the practice squad be of that. So for some reason, one of your kick returners, whether Ali makes the team or not, one of your kick returners is unavailable, and you've got these two guys on the practice squad. You can make the choice, or you can put the one on the practice squad who you do want to elevate.
Because that's going to be why he's up here. It's not going to be to take Derrick Henry's carries or Justice Hill's carries. It's going to be for kickoff. So, that's going to be interesting. Two, I guess, veteran players at this point. And Gaskin, had tons of production at Washington. I think he's their all-time leading rusher. Just was a heck of a college player.
Mm-hmm. And 2 good years at Miami with 450 yards or so when he was there. It's not like he's had no pro production. It's just been a while. So
right.
All right, who's another guy we want to talk about here? Let me pick on. I think I want to pick on Jared Christian Lichtenhand because he's a guy, and I don't have full scoring on him. So we'll start with that. So it comes with all disclaimers that this normally comes from. He is really built size and shape wise like he could be an offensive tackle in the National Football League. Now, there are some questions about whether or not he's got the feet necessary to play on the left side. But he certainly is a big, tall guy. And, it would not surprise me. I think he's actually one of the risks that the Ravens have in terms of a waiver claim just because he's the right size and shape to be taken. He's looked pretty good in terms of laying his body into people. Seems to climb pretty well, at least the half level to seal on that right side when that's where the run is going. A lot of the good runs this preseason have been to the right in terms of getting Ali and Keaton Mitchell over on that side for, and even Johnson as well. They've just done a good job with those runs, and a lot of that's been with Lichtenhand in the game. Yeah,
he does definitely look the part. Definitely.
You ever have one of those days where everything's off? Well, Mood can help with that. And let me tell you about Mood. It's the online cannabis brand that is changing the way we handle everything, from stress to sleepless nights, with functional gummies that are 100% federally legal cannabis. Mood launched to make cannabis affordable, accessible, and transparent, while at the same time supporting American farmers growing premium hemp on small pesticide-free farms. Their gummies are next level. Seriously, I've tried a few, and each one feels totally different. The Sleepy Time gummies, out like a light, immediately asleep. The Epic Euphoria, it's perfect when you just need a reset to feel good again. What makes them unique? Mood combines THC with herbs and adaptogens, so you get real targeted effects. You're not going to find this in your typical dispensary. And here's the best part. Mood ships discreetly to most states, offers a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, and right now you get 20% off your first order with the promo code RAVEN. Just head to mood.com. Find your perfect gummy and use the code RAVENS at checkout to save 20%.
He looks the part. That's interesting to see. It's with those guys, it's always interesting because does another team have a size and shape guy? And do they just want to keep their guy, in their system, or maybe he fits well with their, what they're looking for specifically, or that kind of thing. But, these guys are always kind of fun to follow their stories, because you never know. It could be a guy like Corey Bullock this year, where, somebody that's really an afterthought. The fans don't know their name. All of a sudden, this time next year, they know their name, and they've had 2 years in the organization.
Yeah, I kind of you just mentioned Corey, and it's your turn, so I don't want to jump. But I'm going to pick Corey Bullock as my next one if you don't want to talk about him now.
Go ahead. No, I'll talk. I'll start off. Was one of the points that I've been making recently is that, when I look at a center, I think, other than snapping the ball, I guess would be number one, most important. Number two for me is just what happens above the shoulders. How smart are they? And, I was happy to hear Cooper Rush, and I believe others have complimented Corey on running the show up there, being in control, calling out the protections. I mean, that to me is most important. You would talk about like a position where you could save money on. I don't think you need a super mobile, super athletic, $16 million a year center. Like,
who might that be?
Who might that be?
Yeah.
You just give me a smart player. I'll take the big old all-star guard and pay him next to him. Like if I had to, my druthers. But getting back to it, Corey is just very smart. And I went back and I watched his Ohio State game from last year, and there was another game in there too. But again, I noticed the same thing, Ken. It's like, well, is he big, strong? Well, not really, but he's kind of strong. Is he mobile? Well, not really, but he's kind of mobile enough. Is he long? It doesn't look real long, but he uses his hands well. It was just a lot of steady play, and it kind of backed up like what I had seen this year from him. Like, I'm not a Maryland Terps fan, so I didn't follow him that closely, barely scouted him. I think I just watched, after we had signed him last year, I watched something on him. But going back and watching his tape, it's just like a lot of what you saw in college is what you're seeing now, which is just a steady, smart football player. And that goes a long way when you're playing center. And so I'm really, really impressed, happy for him. Just really, really happy for him that he's got a chance to make this team. It looks like he's going to make this team.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's definitely exciting. We saw two people in Corey Bullock jerseys right on the sideline watching the offensive line practice, and I'm like,
nice.
There's not a lot of Corey Bullock jerseys around. You're looking at family. So it looked like maybe his mom and the other. It was a small child. I couldn't guess whether it's his child or another child of some sort. But they were both very excited, obviously, about.
I sat in front of 2 rows of Mosleys one time with CJ Mosley. And they were obviously all his family. That was really, really fun. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I got, it got me excited every time he made a tackle, because there was 2 rows of people losing their mind just behind me, all standing up when everybody else was sitting down. It was great.
The weird one, not to just try to outdo each other on this, but we were walking in for a Steelers night game, and there's this crowd of people all wearing number 66 Gradkowski jerseys behind
Bruce, right? No, that's the quarterback.
No, this is
Gino.
The center. Gino, yeah. And I think actually they are both in the same family, I believe. Yeah. And it might have been some of each, but we were all Gradkowski jerseys together. You got a backup quarterback and a backup center. Obviously, these are guys who
that's funny, man.
They had to be family. All right, so when you see a weird jersey like that, there's generally 2 possibilities, like even just a one-off. So I saw a Keith Kirkwood jersey the other day, and I thought, okay, there's 2 ways you got that. You either got it at an auction where the Ravens contributed that towards it for a good cause from their leftover jersey pile, which they do that sometimes.
That's nice.
Yeah, and then somebody might buy it for $75 or something, and you get a game-worn jersey out of it. It's kind of neat. Or your family, and in this case, Keith Kirkwood's brother was set the case. So
that's awesome. So the Bullocks were out of practice, probably.
But anyway,
that's cool.
So getting back to Bullock for a minute, the thing I like about him is he's really big for a center at about 320 pounds. He definitely gives you the size you need. I thought he had a good game, but not a great game this last week. And I'll tell you what, all it takes to ruin a game that it would otherwise be very good, and that's what I think was the case with Bullock, was one holding call. And you cannot minimize the impact of that. It's very serious, especially in 35 snaps. To get a holding call lowers you 2 grade levels at center. So it's could you get back into the B range with the subjective adjustment? Possibly, but you're certainly you're going to have trouble scoring above a C in a game where you have a holding call in 35 snaps. So that was unfortunate. It was a it looked like it was probably a legitimate takedown, and it looked completely unnecessary too. It wasn't the kind of play he needed to make. Otherwise, I think he's played smart. He's played really good football in 2 games so far, and he's faced the best these other teams have to offer.
Yeah. Mazzie Smith, first round pick, and he's going to line up at 1 tack, 0 tack. So yeah, I'm just very, very proud of Bullock, and I'm just happy to see, in general as a Ravens fan, not just at any position, somebody come in and just take a job, earn it. And it was very clear, I saw him at the stadium practice. That really opened my eyes that he was running ahead of Samac. And then, to watch him play in the game, it's like, yeah, I can see why. Coaches are on their stuff right here. He looks like definitely a stronger player than Samac. But, getting back to my scouting report, he doesn't look like he lacks mobility. He doesn't look like he lacks, especially for center, he doesn't lack strength. Like he's got a little bit of everything. And I think that's perfect for a center. If your smarts are your calling card and you offer a little bit of everything, not a lot of no overpowering qualities, but a little bit of everything, center is a great spot for you.
Oh, I would think that you'd be immediately among the better centers in the league if you're generally a plus interior offensive lineman in a number of categories there. The prototypical long-lasting 8-time All-Pro center is a guy who's short in one of those categories. He's got short arms, or he has some other significant problem with size. Not being a Jeff Saturday, for example, was in the league forever, and he was a guy who was undersized. But that he learned to play with that, and it's it's definitely something you can get over. All right, do you want to pick the next player, because I kind of picked that guy for you?
No, go ahead. I'm pretty much. I feel like we talked about everybody. I didn't have anyone in particular. I'm a little worried about Noteboom. That would be like the person I keep catching my eye when I'm looking at the roster. I thought that I don't know what your scoring said, but I thought that he played better week 1 than he did this week.
Right. I think after the review we just did, which we're looking at the pressure and we're trying to assign who got it, I think he's got 3.5 pressures in this game. I put up in my article that it was 3 pressure events, and it was only on 17 pass blocking snaps, so that's not good. Beaten inside by defensive end Nealand, which I had in there, shed by defensive end Houston, and steamrolled by defensive tackle Winfrey. So that's Perrion Winfrey. He's a good player, a high round pick, but he contributed to a quarterback hit that Vinson got 2/3 of too on the other side that I didn't even include in those 3.
It was the Marshawn Nealand play, the inside counter that he was just beat by a mile. That wasn't close. Like he couldn't even get a hand on him almost.
Right. It looked like he almost made a spin move to get away from Nealand to the outside while Nealand was going to the inside.
Yeah, it was ugly. And we're lucky that didn't result in a turnover or Cooper Rush, getting knocked out of that game.
It's a little scary because Noteboom hasn't really played exceptionally well when he's been in there, but guys who can play either tackle spot and aren't terrible are at a big premium in this league. And that's why I'm afraid, like, the size and shape tackles. I mean, you never put Vinson through the risk of doing that. That came up as a question. Somebody asked that as a question for the mailbag, which you made as address now. What's the percentage chance that a player like Vinson gets selected away from you, gets selected in the waiver process if you cut him?
For Vinson, I would say close to 100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a player like Vinson maybe is different, but for him himself, he's getting claimed. Yeah. He would have gotten drafted if we didn't.
Right.
Pretty sure of that. I would say 100%.
Yeah. I'm there with you, and particularly after the game he just had, where he's got a lot of highlight play within that game that gives you additional hope. I think there's a lot of teams that are just what we used to call the second division in baseball, but they're teams that are not really in tremendous playoff contention this year and probably already know it.
Yeah.
That don't have the kind of depth that the Ravens have, which is pretty much 31 of 32 teams that don't have the depth the Ravens have and can afford to maybe take an extra player on their roster would love to have a developmental lineman like him.
Exactly. That not every team is in a Super Bowl window. Some are quite the opposite, and they would love to get their hands on somebody like him who's showed himself well at a couple of different places now, whether it be the Senior Bowl game or when he did play bigger schools, or I think he played Auburn, or here in the preseason.
Yeah, they mentioned that, so I know that is in particular true. All right, who else do we have that we'd like to hit on here before this is we get to the MVPs here? I really like the game that Voorhees had, and there's not too much I have to say about it because he's only played 31 snaps this preseason, but he's stacking good games in very short appearances. Don't expect him to play this next week. I hope he'll sit out the entire thing. If he does play, maybe he plays one series, but I hope he doesn't play at all. If that's the case, then, in 31 snaps, there's not nearly enough data for me to say that he's definitely improved, but I can say that I'm excited to see what he can do opening day against Buffalo. And that, will be one of the players I'm really looking forward to see just how much improvement is there. And I'll say this, if the preseason is an indication, the Ravens are starting to get the payoff they hoped for by redshirting Voorhees and having him for the extra year out of that 7th round pick.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a small sample size, but when you look at Voorhees and Faalele, we were looking at both of them coming in, competition supposedly at left guard, but probably not. Voorhees has stood out among all three of these guards as like he looks ready to rock.
You're including Cleveland in the group,
yes. I'm sorry that the Cleveland, Faalele, Voorhees. Excuse me. Supposedly there was a competition between Cleveland and Voorhees, but I can see why Voorhees was taking that by storm, and I'm glad Ben Cleveland got some looks at right guard last week because Voorhees looks like the man in there. Much like Kolar, he looked like a starter playing in a preseason game. Even more so than Rosen. I think he played better than Rosengarten has these last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Voorhees looked real good.
He really has not made any kind of a serious error in 31 snaps, which is half a football game. I mean, it does happen. I can tell you from looking at, like, it would literally be one score sheet this long that without a negative number on it would be what we're talking about. What Voorhees has produced so far, so that's good. But yeah,
let's not pat him on the back too hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think if I look at the two left guards together and what they provided, both Dellinger and Voorhees appear to have the mobility at least the minimum level and maybe higher that they can work within the Ravens system to pull effectively. And we've seen some much less significant athletes do that. So you go back to Bradley Bozeman, to James Hurst. Those guys are not nearly as athletic as either Dellinger or Voorhees is. And if they can make them into good pullers, then I think both these guys will more than meet the minimum standard.
Agreed.
All right.
I'm good to go. But Lucas Scott, I believe, is the only other guy. Just to touch on, I'm really impressed with him at a fullback. So obviously we're not carrying two fullbacks, but I think that he's allowed us to play the offense and run some plays that we're going to be running in the regular season and having that big body. But he would be on my MVP list for sure for this game.
All right. Something interesting has happened in 2 games. Now, they've talked about other players, this being a tell when they're on the field, like Justice Hill. I think this is maybe done. It's more likely to be a pass if Justice Hill is on the field. Well, that's probably true because of down and distance. When Lucas Scott's been on the field, they've had 50 snaps this preseason and they've run it 43 times.
That's good. That's good stuff.
It's like, the run's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. So they have been ahead, obviously.
Any worry about that with Keaton Mitchell this year?
about
So look,
it.
so
It tells us
like you want to get him his touches, but he's not going to be on the field that much because of Derrick Henry. So is it like, oh crap, Keaton Mitchell's in the game? He's probably getting the ball.
okay, so when he's in the backfield, that's always going to be a problem because the running back on a high percentage of plays gets the ball anyway. So because the running backs have all of their carry touches plus they have their pass catching touches, so they end up with a lot of touches as a percentage of all plays. And in particular, if you're going to run the ball, they end up getting a lot of them. I'm not worried about it with Mitchell as much this year because I think he's going to be flanked out, second back in the backfield.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, there'll be a misdirection component. A lot of the.
I was glad to hear Monken say that he's kind of going to maybe take something off of Likely's or help replace Likely. That pony backfield with Henry and Mitchell, that's I think is a great alternative to the 12 personnel that we were running.
Yeah. No, it's just a change of pace too. You don't want to show them things and give it to them. And every element of misdirection that you have, particularly the misdirection elements which have speed, just gives the defense a chance to be wrong. And I don't know if you remember this a few years ago, particularly when they played the NFC East the last time around in 2020. But they played them in 24, but they played them in 2020. And Lamar had a big run against each of those teams, and each of them, a component of it was getting the linebacker to completely overcommit to a run going the other way.
That was when we ran the inverted veer or the inverted option, however they called it, and Lamar took it up the gut instead of getting his 8 yards to the outside. Yep. And those two teams didn't know what I think both of them were like 50-some yarders too, weren't they?
Yeah, I one against the Dallas, once against the Giants. I played one once against the Redskins. I think it was 3 different teams he beat really badly for those kind of plays. I don't remember if he had one against the Eagles or not. I don't remember that 2020 game against the Eagles too well. All right. Anyway, excited. Why don't we move on? Talk about the offensive MVPs for this game, and then we can move on for that. You're number 3 guy.
Mr. Scott is my number 3 guy, and I wanted to put him on here just as even a compilation of the first 2 games, just to give him credit. And I think I've done that diligence on giving him his credit.
Well, fair enough, and we've certainly talked about him enough. He's on my honorable mention group. I didn't have him on my top 3. My number 3 guy is Dearness Johnson. Really did not get, I think, a lot of the accolades he deserves for this game. I mean, you come off and they're talking about Rasheen Ali's 19 carries that weren't all that good versus Johnson's, 11 carries or whatever it was, which were fantastic. And they had basically the same yardage total with that difference of 8 carries involved in it. And Dearness had a whole bunch of successes, and he ran for a touchdown in the game, and he was very effective running the ball. Had many higher percentage of successes. I like the way he ran the ball, and he's my number 3 guy.
Love it. My number 2 guy is where I had that's where I had Charlie Kolar. Okay. Love Charlie Kolar in this game. Would he have 3 catches, I believe? Mm-hmm. It was all the work that he was doing in between the catches, though. Again, like the man amongst boys type thing. It wasn't they looked bigger, faster, stronger. He was clearly the pro out there and the starter. And I thought he did a really nice job with his routes, his spacing, his footwork, his timing. And again, if he was playing with Lamar Jackson and the starters in that game, and because he was used kind of like a Mark Andrews in this game, he could have had a Mark Andrews type game, 6-7 catches type game and a touchdown. If that option was there for him. The Ravens just it was a preseason game and they mauled him, but Charlie looked really good.
Yeah, I thought so too. I also on my honorable mention list, my number 2 guy is Tez Walker. 6 catches. Here's what I liked about Tez's game. I think we talked about this a little bit in the first episode. They took him way out of his comfort zone to be running some of the routes that will help complement the 7, 8, 9 that he was really known for coming out of UNC and also out of Kent State for that matter. His route tree was very limited in college, did not have the good comeback routes to complement what he needed deep. And I don't think it was by accident that basically everything he caught was middle in terms of being middle or shorter, I should say. And coming back for the football a lot. I mean, I think that Monken was saying, let's get him started on these routes. Let's get him some confidence. It is Cooper Rush throwing on the football and not Lamar Jackson, which is a little unfortunate. But they seem to build up a good rapport, and those guys will play together for a lot of the practice time yet to come. So as the regular season goes on and they're doing their installs and whatnot, Jackson will be out there for probably 2/3 of each 10-minute session, and then they'll put out Cooper Rush, and Cooper Rush will be out there with Tez Walker while Lamar is out there with the 1, 2, 3 receivers. And it's the connection that they have will actually continue to pay fruit. And hopefully Lamar's watching, and when Tez is used in the game, he has value.
Yeah, Tez was my number one guy, and I actually hope that he gets some. I don't know. I would like to see him get some practice time with Lamar. That's something that I actually wanted to bring up during the show and forgot, is that when Lamar was at the podium a couple of weeks ago and they asked about Tez, he said that he hadn't worked with him too much. I'm like, man, I would like to see him get some, especially if you're resting D-Hop, just Bateman missed a little time. I would like to see him get some timing down with Lamar.
He has played some with him, by the way. I think he's been the guy to be elevated, but they have elevated Wallace some too to play with that one group and be there. But anyway, so you had Tez number 1, and I had Cooper Rush number 1. I thought Cooper did a great job of standing in against some pretty heavy pressure at times. He's willing to take a hit. He threw the ball pretty well. I'm not ever going to be happy about the velocity on Cooper Rush's throws, or sometimes the amount of time it takes to get out there. But I was happy that he was able to get the ball off. Got kind of, if he had 2 interceptions, but you could say he maybe deserved 1/2 of 1 interception among those 2. Certainly didn't deserve the Ali interception at all. The Wester interception, it was unfortunate. It was probably a penalty, but if it got called that way, the other thing is Wester could have bailed him out in terms of playing a little defense. That didn't happen either. But I thought he threw the ball effectively, and he basically was the big reason the Ravens were able to stay on the field for 79 total plays in this game.
I thought he played well. I thought fans gave him too much of a hard time from what I had seen. I mean, for a backup quarterback, that's kind of what you want. He can move the ball with his arm. He showed different kind of throws. Things were on time. The protections were good. He didn't get his pinky finger dislocated like Anthony Richardson, or blindsided and throwing the ball into no man's land like Joe Milton. Cooper was pretty solid. It's just unspectacular. So I like the choice.
So if you've got 3 recent backup quarterbacks the Ravens have had. You had Cooper Rush. You had Tyler Huntley. And let's go all the way back to Tyrod Taylor.
What about Josh Johnson?
No, wouldn't include him in this group because I don't think he's as good as these 3 guys.
Okay.
So in of those group of 3, rank them 1, 2, 3 in terms of which one you'd like to have.
Tyrod. I'm a Tyrod guy.
Uh-huh.
I think Tyrod's main problem is he almost plays it too safe.
Yep.
But I've seen him unleash it. Tyrod could have the kind of season for you where he throws for, say, 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions.
Well, he did have that season, I think.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like that right. Like that kind of season. Whereas I don't think Snoop can, and I don't think Rush can. So I would go Tyrod, I would go Rush, and then Huntley I was really high on for a while, but man, it was just like it got to a point where it was either a deep ball or a 5-yard hitch. It almost looked like Russell Wilson last year.
Uh-huh.
Like one read. It was just like, I remember the one Tyler Huntley game where I think it was against the Browns where we threw so many stop routes that they just started jumping it and took one back. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, we got to have a more diverse. We got to threaten intermediate. So Huntley, had the best legs out of them all. But if I'm trying to back up Lamar Jackson, I'm not looking to back up his legs. I'm looking to back up what he can do as a passer, and to be able to, threaten different parts of the field. So yeah, Tyrod, Rush, and Snoop.
That is my exact order as well. So I for a lot of the same reasons, but I do more value the care with the football that Tyrod brought to this team, because I thought that it was more valuable. It's certainly more valuable with what the 2025 Ravens bring to the table. I think they're going to be a very good defensive team. And I think you do very well to have a good decision maker at quarterback, a good game manager that can get you through, 3 or 4 games without Lamar. So. All right, Jason, complete pleasure talking football with you.
Oh, it was great. Great. Thanks, Ken, man. Thanks for having me on.
tell folks about Huddle Up Films, and I'm looking forward to a guest appearance there on Wednesday, rather.
Yeah. Will this be out before Wednesday?
Yes, this will be out on Tuesday.
Okay, so hey, Wednesday night, if you're not doing anything at 9 p.m., Ken will be on with me, and it'll be a little bit different style show. We're going to go through the roster, but we're also going to talk about the guys who aren't playing. So we'll talk about the end of the roster decisions, which are the hot spots, but kind of like the Keaton Mitchell talk, like how are we going to use them? How would you expect to use them? And that show should be about an hour and some. But yeah, Huddle It Up Films on Twitter and YouTube. Weekly show every Wednesday at 9 p.m. And of course, there's cut-ups on the channel that I provide where you can scout the player and see what they have done. So it's all 22. It's there's no fluff in there. I'll highlight the player on the screen and run all the snaps for you. Sometimes they'll be pass blocking snaps, pass or run blocking snaps, or pass rush, or it just depends on what position it is. But just to give you an idea of how that player looked, this week I have Teddy Buchanan and Jay Higgins already done. So if you want to compare those two, both videos are like 3 minutes long, so it doesn't take a long.
So each is only the 25 preseason, I assume, if you're talking about Higgins.
It's just from this game. I just did it from this game. So
gotcha.
Basically, and they overlapped. It was like Teddy played, and then he came out the game, and then Higgins played.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about a 3-minute video for each, I believe. And you can see Teddy looks like he's playing a little hesitant to me. Not really like blowing up, not doing anything bad. Higgins looks really under control and really instinctual.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the comments that I get on that. And that's why I would encourage people who listen to chime in and let me know what you think, because there's some really good discussions. And I love the fact that the people who watch the channel are scouts themselves. They're scouts at heart, man, just like myself, where they're noticing, Teddy will be okay. Like I think the consensus was we liked, as far as Higgins was concerned, we liked the way he was shedding blocks, but he doesn't look like a year in the weight room will probably do him good. He's ahead of the game, very instinctual, but he needs to get a little bigger, stronger, faster, which was the reason he went, undrafted.
Right.
So good football player though, Higgins.
Yeah.
And Teddy looks like he's feeling for it. Like if you hear like a hitter feeling for the baseball, trying to get it's not that it's moving too fast. He looks like he's being cautious right now.
All right. I've really liked Chandler Martin too, so I hope you'll get a cut up of what he's accomplished so far. But he might be the guy they would. I hope they keep them both at least on the practice squad. I'm still hopeful one of them will make the team, but sacrifices have to be made. Maybe we'll talk about that on Wednesday night a little bit when we have.
Yeah, and on the cut up, Chandler's standing right next to Jay Higgins most of the time, so you can watch him. You can watch him too.
Play together. All right, appreciate you, Jason. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a film study short, I have the Concerns series coming up. You might have heard about that if you listened to part 1. If you didn't listen to part 1, go back and listen to part 1. It was great. I had Jason on it. Jason, thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thanks, Ken. I appreciate you so much.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.